Hello and welcome to the Inventive Marketing Club. We're trying something a little bit different this time with some new slides with funky colors that John, designer I work with, has worked on. So do let me know what you think. Hopefully everything's still readable, but it does look quite funky. We are joined today by Jack, who will introduce himself in a minute, but he's going to be basically taking over and talking about Facebook Essentials. So once I hand over to him, I'm going to stay out of the way and just let him get on. Although I've got a few taxing questions that I might throw to you later, Jack. So Jack's going to be looking at Facebook Essentials, how to use Facebook in business, grow your audience and win customers. He's going to be everything from sort of starting out in Facebook all the way through touching on some advertising content, ideas and that sort of stuff. But I'll let Jack go into all of that. We do hope to run some more advanced Facebook workshops later, maybe diving into some of the detail, but this is a good coverall to get you all started. So I'm Ben, you all know me. I run Rather Inventive and this club. Gosh, I've been doing this particular club now for 2.5 years, I think. So we've really racked up quite a good number of them. I think this is the 31st. So if there's any topics that if you're coming in new to this, and this is the first one you're listening to, we've got tons of topics already done: SEO, website development, general marketing strategy. In fact, I've done 3 separate workshops on marketing strategy, loads of stuff, email marketing, tons. But one of the areas that was really lacking is social media. We'd covered LinkedIn. In fact, Jack helped with that as well. But social media and the different social media channels, Jack's come into as an expert who really lives in that world to talk about those in a bit more detail. So Jack, introduce yourself, say hello and say what you've been doing recently.
Thanks, Ben. So I'm Jack McCourtry. I run Courtry based up in the Midlands. We predominantly help businesses, organisations of all sort of shapes and sizes to, first of all, understand what social media is and then begin to utilise it. So we'll do everything from sort of helping you take a strategic view at it. We'll provide some mentoring and some training. And then for those that really do want some more sort of hands-on support, we'll help people with their content creation and sort of account management. And as Ben touched on, we also contribute to things such as this in terms of sharing our tips, advice, and walking people through sort of the key social media channels, really sort of simplifying everything as much as possible to make sure that people can understand how they can use it within their business, because the tools are very simple at certain levels, but it's actually how then you mold and shape things to you, your business, what you're trying to do in your target audience. So yes, today we'll cover some of the key bits around Facebook. Some of you may already know some of these key bits, so I find it can be useful as a bit of a reminder, but hopefully we'll then delve in a little bit deeper in terms of the best ways of using it, and to help you understand how you're progressing with using Facebook. And then as we go on, if there are any sort of key questions that I haven't covered, then please sort of fire away. But as Ben said, we probably will go into some more in-depth sessions in the future.
Yeah, exactly. So do put your questions in the chat, which is on the right-hand side. Oh, hello, Claire. Looks fab. Thank you very much. And do say hello if you're listening live. If you miss anything, it'll be recorded so you can catch it later. Add your questions there. If we don't get to them, don't worry, because we'll try and pick them up next time, or we can use them for fodder to create additional presentations. Just a little bit about the club for those who are new to it. We basically do one of these sessions every single month for at least 60 minutes. So we try and focus on a particular topic, which could be at any different levels, really, from a basic level like this, all the way through to more discussions and high-level ideas on marketing strategy or social. In fact, one of the last ones we talked about was, in fact, Jack, you're involved in that. We're looking at social media, and there's different social media channels and how they're used and where the state of play is. So if you want to know what's out there in terms of social, that's a good one to look at. If you need any help with any of the areas, social, SEO, video, we've got everything covered. If you're not sure where to look, just give me a buzz. My email's support@ratherinventive.com, and I'll point you in the right direction. And I don't know if a lot of people know this, but we have an audio version as a podcast that you can use if you are driving, doing the dishes, walking the dog, and it allows you to very quickly listen and consume a lot of this information. And then if you need, you can dive into the video later. If you want to find out any more, ratherinventive.com/club. Okay, Jack, over to you. I'm going to disappear from stage and I will see you at the end of it unless I pop up with any questions. See you later.
Cheers, Ben. So as Ben just mentioned about questions, so if anybody has any questions, please sort of fire away, drop them into the chat on the right-hand side as we go through. And I will pick them up as we go along. But also there will be some time towards the end where people can have a bit more of an open-ended sort of Q&A session. So I thought we'll start with sort of really the basics, a bit of an introduction to Facebook. So as we all probably know, even if we do or don't use it, the majority of people do use Facebook within their personal lives as a communication channel, whether that's with friends, from school or current friends and family. It's also a way that people consume their news, and this is increasing in sort of prominence. As you can see from all sort of the major media outlets, they're all using Facebook as a means to disseminate their information. But also we've seen in the last sort of, let's say probably 2 or 3 years, and this is a growing trend, of how people are using sort of groups within Facebook. So they tend to be around communities or common interests. I've actually seen an increase in how these are used, certainly, let's say, over the last 18 months within lockdown, whether it's around fitness or mental health and well-being. These common interest groups are thriving, where people can go and engage with a whole host of people that they probably don't know or haven't met around sort of a common interest. And this is where Facebook sort of prioritizing some of their activity. So Facebook is essentially the reason why we're talking about it as businesses, or why a business might want to use it, is because people, i.e. our target audience, are using it on a regular basis. They're using it, as I say, to communicate within their personal lives, but it's how then businesses can use this tool to, first of all, generate some awareness around their brand and what they do, but also as a vehicle to generate sort of new clients as well. So why should you use it? So first of all, if you are a business to consumer, business to customer business, this Facebook really should sit at the top of your agenda. Based on the previous point I made, the public people are using it on a daily basis, sort of for multiple hours per day. It's not sort of people using it infrequently. So this is the right place for you to be seen by your target audience, to, as I say, create brand awareness, and then to encourage people to engage with you, and then also to, let's say, visit a website or engage in a conversation and make an inquiry. It allows you as well, which some people do forget, is to communicate with your current customers and your existing customers. This is just another means of communicating, another means of your current and existing customers and clients just keeping up to date with you on a day-to-day basis or a weekly basis, especially if what you provide or sell to someone isn't something that they purchase regularly. Let's say it's an infrequent purchase. So this is a great tool just to inform your current audience, as well as looking to generate a new audience and new clients. And as we say, it helps to build brand awareness. So Facebook in itself is used quite widely by businesses of all sizes and shapes. And whatever journey you're at, whether you're a new business, this Facebook should be somewhere on your agenda, especially if you're looking at digital marketing. But equally, it's for, let's say, the more mature and developed businesses. Facebook has come along, let's say, recently in the last sort of, let's say, 10 years. And there will be those established businesses that haven't necessarily looked at it just yet, but it is still something that people should look at to, as I say, build that brand awareness, but also then to go and encourage sales and how you can influence your target audience by communicating what you do, how you do it, why people should buy from you, that then will ultimately filter through to people purchasing from you. So some simple bits and some reminders for people that may have dabbled into a bit of Facebook, but equally some key things for people to be aware of if you haven't looked at using Facebook. When you're setting up a business page, on the surface of it, it's very simple. Because like any sort of online platform, it is essentially a box filling exercise. There will be fields that Facebook will tell you they need, what they require, whether that's imagery or text. The key thing to remember is that a business page actually resides within a personal page. So what I mean by this is that you have to have, or if you haven't already got one, a personal Facebook account. That then within there, you can then go and set up a business page. This never used to be the case. There used to be two separate logins. So what you'd have to do, you'd have a personal account that would be totally independent of your business page. With just the way that Facebook's evolving and the way that they are introducing new tools, your personal page has to sit within a business page has to sit within your personal page. And you can, if you need to, you can be responsible and administer more than one page or more than one group. Again, all of these will sit within your personal profile. One top tip when setting up a business page, and this is mainly from a security point, especially when it comes to accessing a page, when people may forget passwords or not be able to get into Facebook on a particular device, and also then to help you to respond to something quite quickly. And I know there could be sort of people on their own out there that they're the only individual within the business. So this is something that I would encourage maybe to do with a friend or a colleague or a family member. So I would always add at least one other person as an administrator on the page. So there'd be yourself as the business owner or the person that's solely responsible for the Facebook page, but then I would add another person, just because then there are multiple routes and multiple ways of accessing the page, as I say, for those sort of 2 or 3 reasons, which probably won't happen very often, but nevertheless, we don't want to arrive at a point when, for whatever reason, you're finding it difficult to get into the page. A real simple piece is just ensure that all the key pieces of information about your business are on that page somewhere. It's pretty hard not to include all of the information because Facebook guides you through it, and it's sort of, there are these fields of information, so you can't really set up the page without putting a name against it or a brief piece of information. But what I would encourage is to maximize all of those boxes, so especially in the About Us section. So include a description of who you are and what you do, maybe list your services or products, make it really clear where people can find you, especially if you have premises. So there is a facility to add in contact information and also a map. But also the key bit, as much as it is, remember to put it, enter it into the page when you're setting up your Facebook business page. It's also really important to come back and make sure the information is updated regularly. 9 times out of 10, from one year to the next, there's not going to be anything drastic that changes. But let's say you move to a bigger premises, or you add some new products or services in, or you are, let's say it could be you've got a pop-up event that you're going to every now and again. Make sure that any key change within the business is somewhere within the Facebook business page. And I mean that in terms of the About Us information, not necessarily the posts. And that's something we'll talk about in a few slides' time. Make it really easy for people to find you and to recognize the brand. We've probably all come across it, but I certainly do on a fairly regular basis, where you either stumble across a page or you click on a Facebook link at the bottom of someone's website, and when you arrive there, it doesn't resemble anything to do with that brand, because the profile image or the logo image hasn't been used with a logo. It's a photograph of some description, and it's probably not fitting it correctly. Equally, the cover photo, which we can see at the top here, it says showroom and now open. I mean, this is a great example of using that cover photo as a piece of, essentially a piece of information, piece of content to communicate some key messages. Is make sure that the image is fit correctly. And you can quite easily go and find on the internet, if you just Google Facebook image sizes, there is a host of information, mainly from Facebook themselves, but there'll also be blog articles. But I would encourage you to go to a Facebook page or a Facebook link, where it will tell you the sizes of the images that they require. And as I say, this is really important because, first of all, people have got to know where they're landing, so there's that familiarity. And I think if images aren't to the right size or the right quality, that doesn't provide your audience, whether that's an existing member of the audience or a new member of the audience, with the right first impression, which, as we all know in business, is essential. And then it is, in terms of the information and the pieces of let's say the setup of the page, not the using of the page in terms of posts, is I would make sure you use all of these fields. And the key bit is I would draw you to the bottom point here is make use of the call to action button. So in this image here, this is to the right hand side. If you look at the logo and where you've got the page name of Hot Tubs Rock, on the right hand side there is a little box there that at the moment says edit send message. Well, in there, that is where you can put in or you can select a number of different calls to action. So that could be learn more, buy now, shop now, book now, a whole host or call or make an appointment. There's probably a good selection of maybe around 10 options that you can select. And behind that button, you can then put some additional information. So it could well be a link through to your homepage or a product page or a shop. Equally, if there's an email, let's say you want them to inquire via email, you can put an email address in and also then for a phone number. Again, this is something that makes it really easy for people to find out essentially how to contact you. And that is exactly why we're all going to be using Facebook, because yes, it is a means of communicating and engaging with people within the platform. And people will inquire and make requests about products or orders via possibly the messaging service or in comments. But the lion's share of people will actually use Facebook to find that information, then disappear somewhere else to your website or to go and find some additional content. So by making use of this button, it makes their life easier, and there's a higher chance of them doing something with it. So just before we move on, setting up the page, make sure you put as much information on there as possible. That will also help from SEO as well. So search within Facebook, but also externally. So with our friends at Google, it makes it easier for your Facebook page to show up in search outside of the platform, and make sure it's updated as well. So planning content. And this is always a really important thing where I talk to people, especially let's say they're at the start of their journey to begin to use Facebook. There's this massive excitement. There's obviously a lot of interest because it's something new, which is great. It's a great step as well. If someone's beginning to use Facebook for the first time, it's that they've put some thought and some ideas into the fact that Facebook is going to warrant the investment of some time. But before we get carried away, it's really important to sit back and plan your content. And this is exactly the same for any other area of digital marketing and any other social platform. Because the only route to success is essentially fundamentally on how good your content is and what's it trying to do. If there's a lack of thought and a lack of preparation, you'll find there's a high chance, it's not guaranteed, there's a high chance that you probably won't get anything from Facebook, or if you do, it will take a long time to get there. So taking the time to plan, prepare content is essential and a very worthwhile investment of your time. So your post needs to be interesting, it needs to be eye-catching. With that in mind, it's all very visual orientated. So the quality of your images, the variety of your images, it could be considering infographics, video is key, which we'll touch on. But it's all about what is the key message you're trying to convey. What information do you want to share? And also, what do you want your audience to do? Are you trying to encourage them to comment and share? Are you just trying to capture their interest with something that then they'll click on a link and visit your site? You have to factor all of this in. And that you can't, like anything really, you can't prepare enough in terms of using Facebook. In terms of that's just the planning of what you're going to talk about. Within those that thought process, it's really important to share about a variety of topics to basically keep people interested. People don't, as we all know, forget Facebook just in the big bad wide world, is that nobody likes anybody really that talks about themselves all the time. And that is the same for Facebook. Even from a business sense, if you're constantly talking about product and service, that probably has a very limited shelf life and people turn off quite quickly. So think about what's going on within the business, document your journey, talk about interesting things that you're seeing outside of your business, but it comes back and is related to it. So what's going on with your market and sector, or let's say you're predominantly focused in the local area. Could you be sharing things about what's going on in the local village or town or city or region that has some relevance back to the business? That keeps people interested. it also breaks up the content from you talking about what you do and what your offering is. Ideally, I would plan a fortnight in advance. For some, that might be a sort of, how on earth do I plan content for 2 weeks in advance, especially when I'm busy with running the business. But this is more about allocating some time, doing the 2 or 3 points above, which I've just covered, but then actually drafting some content that then you can schedule, which we'll talk about in a minute, schedule to be released at the most appropriate time. And you can spend an hour or however long the time that you can afford, and you can think and plan about the posts, but also create them and prepare them and schedule them, that then you haven't got to come back and revisit the page because you need to post something at 8:30 of an evening, when obviously life gets in the way of that, or you can actually use Facebook to schedule the content. So planning and preparing and scheduling content 2 weeks in advance is ideal. If you can get to a little bit longer, then that's only going to help you. But the planning and preparing essentially makes best use of your time, and allows you to really concentrate on the content that you want to share, as opposed to remembering at the 11th hour that you need to post something. We're naturally awfully going to rush through creating the text and trying to pluck an image from somewhere. And ultimately, when you put that onto the Facebook page, there's a good chance that people will see through it. Carefully consider the photos, imagery, and video that you either need to create yourselves or gather. And this obviously goes back to the planning point. Images may not be sort of readily available for you, so you need to be aware of when you're, let's say, in the day-to-day of the business, you might need to be capturing photos as you go along, ready to be used at a later time. And the key bit, when you're actually sharing content, you need to encourage your audience to comment in it and interact. So what do you need to put into a piece of a post or a piece of information that's really going to provoke someone to ask a question, or share an opinion or make a comment? The aim should always be, how are we going to get people to interact with this post? So what to share? I've probably covered some of these bits, but the aim here is always to inform, not to sell. So document your journey and your story. Inform people about the why they should buy, the benefits, how it has helped people, examples of work, but try to steer away from the salesy type posts for a number of reasons. One, if we're all honest with each other, we don't like to be sold to or sold at. So that is exactly the same as Facebook. There's a lot of competition for people's attention on a Facebook feed. As we mentioned on the first slide of how do people use it or why do they use it, it's to interact with people that they know and to consume information about possibly their news, and also to interact with brands. So there's a lot of competition for people's attention. If people can see you sort of out and out sell, it's quite easy for people to flick past. So aim to inform. Also try to think about what the questions and the comments that people make to you, let's say offline, and factor that into your posts. And when I say document your journey, talk about, let's say you make a product and you do it by hand, and there's a great story about materials and suppliers and where you go to sell it, and sort of there's something quite unique that you do in terms of the production of a product or products. Document that. That's what people are interested in. They're buying you as an individual. They're buying your brand. And yes, they are paying for the product, but they're also probably interested in the provenance of something and the journey that you've gone on, possibly the craftsmanship. Exactly the same for service, but that might be a little bit different. So where are you delivering your service? How do you go about piecing together this service that you offer? So where do you get your inspiration from? How do you gather information? How do you deliver it? So it's all about documenting and informing, not selling. One key thing to remember is possibly to develop some campaigns. And these could be campaigns that are going on, let's say, outside of your business. So we talk about, let's say, the social calendar, so seasons of the year. I don't know, let's say it's barbecue season with the weather that's going on at the moment. There could be things around related to your specific sector and the calendar. How can you be contributing to those conversations? But also there's nothing to say that you can create your own campaign. So it could be a product launch, or you're doing a special offer. I know I talk about the salesy posts, but we all know that you're there to sell. So there does have to be the more forthright and salesy type post every now and again. But there could be a campaign around a winter sale, or there could be something that is very specifically to you as a business that you might look to post about regularly for maybe a month, could be 6 weeks, 8 weeks, that is a little bit different to what you're normally sharing and what you're normally doing on your Facebook page. It is really useful to share blogs and articles. Anything that you're creating that sits on your website is always great pieces of content to share across all social platforms. So if you're writing a blog once a month or every other month, and it's sharing your observations and opinions on something, or it's giving an insight into your world, that's great content, and you probably shouldn't just share it once. I'm guessing the blog's going to have a number of different interesting points, so it's possibly to pick out and select a couple of those that you can use over a period of time. And then we talk about video. Video should be at the top of everybody's agenda. It's a really simple way of really gathering a lot of engagement and attention very quickly. And when we talk about video, which Ben's probably done and will do similar sort of sessions to this specifically on video, it's not just it's gone are the days of the corporate video. These, again, you treat it as the same as any other topic of content. It's got to inform, it's got to entertain, and it probably is worthwhile capturing on video what's going on behind the scenes. But video is important because Facebook, like all social platforms, are prioritizing video in people's news feeds. So what I mean by that is, if you've got a video a minute long talking about how you've developed a new product, and a post that links to a blog article, how you've developed a new product, and you're using very much the same content in the post, it is far more likely and virtually guaranteed that the post with the video will perform significantly better than the one that's linking through to the article. One, because the content generally to the consumer, the audience, is a lot more engaging, but also Facebook are prioritizing video content over other types of posts. The reason they do that is because it's what we want to watch, but also it really does help people stay within the platform. So they can watch a video for a minute, couple of minutes, maybe even 30 seconds if it needs to be, and they won't have to leave Facebook. So that ticks Facebook's box because it's kept them within the newsfeed, and they will just carry on to scroll through the rest of their timeline. But video, as we all know, is a great way of conveying a lot of information, in-depth information, in a very slick and quick manner, as opposed to doing something in text. So video should certainly be on your agenda in some shape or form. So actually publishing the content. So sharing posts regularly is important, because if you've got a Facebook page and you're not using it, then equally no one's going to see you. And also, if people do stumble across the dormant Facebook page, it probably is going to send the wrong message about you. But in terms of when you should post, how you should post, that is very much down to you as a business. What are you willing to do? What do you need to do? But also that of your audience and your target audience. So when I say share regularly, I wouldn't set the target of sharing something every day. Some businesses that you need to, especially the fast-paced ones, let's say look at sort of fashion and beauty, those type of areas. But on the whole, you should be probably sharing something maybe once a week, twice a week, possibly 3 times a week. That way you're visible, if nothing else. You're showing up. People are seeing your logo and your name, so there's some familiarity. But also then, if you're doing it regularly, it allows you to convey key messages on a regular basis. And then if we talk about sharing twice or 3 times a week, that comes back to the content planning point of having a number of different topics that you share about on a regular basis. I mean, as we all know, oversharing, if you're using Facebook personally, I mean, I certainly know there are a couple of Facebook accounts or pages that I haven't sort of paid any attention to, but I still see their posts. I just see their logo and their name far too often, and I just scoot past it. I'm not even bothered about going into the page to unfollow the page. So then you'll begin to see, if you're oversharing and you're doing it too frequently, you'll see your reach and the views and the interaction drop off. So it's important to get that balance right. There is a scheduling tool within Facebook. So going back to your 2-week planning, this is a great way of creating the content and gathering the information, and actually going into the tool and scheduling the time and the date that you want it to be published. This helps from a time efficiency point, but also it helps you to maximize your engagement. Because within Facebook and the insights, which we will touch on, and we'll probably actually do another session specifically on insights, is that you can actually see the times of day and the days of the week that your current audience are most active. So yes, we're all on about looking at the new audience and building a larger number of followers, which is really important. But a way of doing that is actually looking at your current audience at the moment. And Facebook will tell you that possibly the best time to post is a Monday evening at 9:30 of an evening, or it could be a Saturday morning. That way, when you're scheduling posts, you can ensure or give yourself and that post and your page the best possible chance being seen by the most amount of people, which then encourages more interaction, which then can feed through to new audience, and also then help from an interaction point. Really think about, which I've said before, really think about the visual element. It's become sort of essentially it's an essential for any business when they're looking at digital marketing to have a really consistent look and feel to any of their photography, their infographics and their videos. When I say link in this point here, it's also think about, let's say you're linking through to a blog or an article. Yes, you want them to go there to find out additional information, but really think about what that sort of that header image is going to be dragged in. So what are people actually going to see? And then just to touch on video again, it's far better to publish a raw video file, so the MP4 file, in terms of performance and the potential chance of gaining interaction, over, let's say, linking through to YouTube or linking through to something like Vimeo. It is important if, let's say, the video sits on a page within your website. What I'd recommend is underneath the post, add the original video file to the post, but also then include a link through to that page. They'll see the video again, but also you want them to go and find some additional information. By using the original video file, this helps to, again, this is something that Facebook are constantly after. They want to keep people in these feeds. So by using that, you get your best possible chance of being seen by a larger audience. So reviewing performance, it's all well and good spending a lot of time and possibly money in using Facebook and doing some of the activities that we spoke about in the previous slides. But reviewing performance is essentially a must, so that you know where you are at any given time, and that you can, like anything else within business, you can find out what's working so that you can do more of it, and find out what's not working so you can stop it and possibly introduce new ideas, and essentially progress where you're going, so you're not sort of standing still. And this on the left-hand side is just a bit of an overview of the landing page of an insights tab. So you should find the insights tab on the left-hand side menu, probably about halfway down when you're in the Facebook page. And you can drill into a lot of information. Facebook will give you a great deal of data, but as we all know, we can be swamped with some data. So looking at the key highlights is a starting point. As you develop your use and it becomes more refined, you then naturally might need to go and find out some more in-depth information and data and analytics. So it's really useful to, as I say, give yourself an overview, so you can look at how many people have viewed the page, the increase in audience. You can see at the top of this picture, you can toggle this between 7 days and 28 days. You can go a little long. I think you can put some custom dates in as well. I encourage people to review the performance of any social platform probably once every 30 days. Not to pour over it with vast amounts of time. It's just to allocate that half hour, 45 minutes to check in, have a look at what's going on, build it into your behavior, because then you can then go into some of the points I've got on this slide in terms of refining some of your activity. Your post reach, so this will be your cumulative figure, and it will be they're all unique numbers as well. So the post reach is the number of people that have seen all of your posts over that given period. we obviously want to see that going up. Post engagement is exactly the same. That'll talk about comments, likes, any sort of engagement whatsoever. Videos will give you the views. And I think really those are sort of the 4 or 5 key areas on sort of that image there. But what this will allow you to do, you can actually go and delve into the posts themselves, and you can look at performance in terms of the reach, the interaction, and the click-throughs on each individual post, which is good to a point. But where I have, or where I think there's great benefit of looking at the individual posts, is if you can group them together, possibly in the topics, or the themes of a post, because then when you bring those, let's say over a month, you've got 2 or 3 topics about 2 or 3 posts about product, you've got 4 posts about some product development, you've then got another 3 posts around answering frequently asked questions. So if you bring all those together, you'll then get a good picture of the headline topics, what's working and what's not working. This will then allow you to, or encourage you to, continue to do what you're doing with the things that are working well, or possibly do more of it. And as I say, then possibly reduce or stop doing the things that aren't working, and allow you and afford you the time to introduce some new ideas. So what are you aiming for? Key bits and takeaways is to look at audience growth. You want to see that you got new people coming to the page. You want to see that you're increasing month on month the reach of your posts. You want to see that people are actually clicking through to the link and visiting your site. And it's also really important to bear in mind and to look at your Google Analytics. So the bits I spoke about before are solely within Facebook. It's really useful to go to your Google Analytics report and possibly look at and marry up some of those statistics so that the link clicks are actually being registered, and you can actually see what's actually coming through onto the website from Facebook. Google Analytics will tell you this. You can also possibly track some journeys. So if someone has originated on Facebook, you'll see that they've entered one page and where they've gone. And this will possibly then help you to work back and attribute some inquiries or some sales to your Facebook activity as well. So top tips, make it really easy for people to find you. And I mean this in terms of outside of Facebook. What we've spoken about is how you're using Facebook to build the brand and attract more people to you within that platform. But as we all know, that's not the only means of essentially making people aware that you are using, and you do have a Facebook business page. So this really is stating the obvious, but make sure that there are clear links on your website to your Facebook page and any other social media channel for that matter. If you use email communication, send newsletters, again, ensure that that is somewhere, let's say in the footer. So alongside your contact information, which we all know is important, your social channels are actually seen in the same sort of light as well. It is going to reiterate some of the key information as well. It is to make it really clear of who you are, what you do, and that information is up to date, because that will appear in Google searches. So when people Google your company name, or possibly even a product name or a description that is related to you, yes, you want your website to appear, but you'll probably also see and something to look out for when you're using Google and you're running search queries, look at how and where social channels are appearing in that search. So you hope, as I say, that your website is number 1, but probably in the top 5 or 6, it will be a social channel of some description. Encourage your customers to leave reviews and recommend you. Some people will feel compelled without being encouraged or asked to go and leave a review on Facebook, which is great. That goes out to all their friends and the wider network, which you're probably hoping that if they're already an existing customer, there's a good chance that within their network and that their friends on Facebook, there'll be some like-minded individuals. That helps to really reinforce what you do and some credibility. But sometimes, as we know, people aren't necessarily forthcoming on Facebook or anywhere else for leaving a review or testimonial. So it might be worth considering how you encourage your customers offline and remind them where to find you, and actually ask them to leave a review on your Facebook page. So let's say you know your customers really well, you could do it when you see them, but there might be, let's say, on a compliment slip, or maybe even on like an invoice if you've got email invoicing, just to have that there and encourage people to go and leave a review and a recommendation. As you begin to progress through your journey within Facebook. We haven't touched on it, but it really is important that you just have a look at it, because it's not for everybody, is to consider Facebook ads. If we're using Facebook ourselves, we've probably already been bombarded. And even if we go onto our own, if we open up our phones and go on Facebook now, there's probably a good chance there'll be a couple of ads flying around in front of each of us. But Facebook ads are really powerful. Can be very, very cost effective. It's really easy to hone in on, focus on your specific target audience, and a great way to reach new people. And also a small tip at the bottom is, and something that's increasing on Facebook, is that there is a function to add jobs to your page. So if you're recruiting, you can put your job description and title, you can put in a location. And we've been seeing with our own clients, it is a great way of attracting people for free, because this is a free of charge free of charge way of putting a job on the page. You can boost a job if you want to, but in my own experience, we haven't had any reason to do so, because they've worked quite well. So if you are looking to recruit, as well as your normal means of recruitment, it possibly is worthwhile looking at how you can add a job to your page. I think now, if anybody's got any questions, primarily about Facebook, maybe you want some clarity on what I've just spoken about, or maybe you've got some questions that are a little bit more in depth, I'm more than happy to sort of pick those up and field some. And by the looks of it, I do already have a couple from Claire. So Claire asks, with business pages, what tips would you have to try and gain more page followers? In terms of tips, before we actually, let's say, get to tips, it's more the fundamentals of Facebook. Really, that is the key thing that you can have in your control, is make sure you've got content that is interesting and shareable, because the more people that interact with it, then the more people that see it, and then hopefully the people that you're looking to target, or the people that are interested, will come and find the page. A tip to gain more page followers that fits in possibly with the second question is advertising. A great way of getting a page up and, let's say, off the ground is through a simple advert that is put out there with the prime aim of attracting followers, just to essentially give it sort of a bit of a foundation audience that then you can hopefully grow organically. And it's more about visibility, making sure you are visible everywhere from a Facebook point. So off Facebook, let's say offline elsewhere online, so your website, but also making sure that you're contributing to conversations as well. So if someone comments, comment back, because then that feeds it. And really the holy grail, and I think this is for all social, is going sort of back to the reviews and recommendation, is encouraging, where possible, other accounts or other people to talk about you online. That is sort of that third party endorsement is essentially worth its weight in gold. So that is sometimes really hard to do, as we say about the reviews, and equally hard to get another Facebook page. But let's say there is a supplier that you work with, or there is somebody that you collaborate with, or let's say there's a shop that you're selling into, or there's an event that you're going to. If you can encourage the people that are hosting the event or run the shop or own the supplier to talk about you in some way, or even just to share one of your posts, I think that's a really great way of getting followers. More is always key, but the quality's got to be there as well. It's okay gaining numbers, but I always say to people, and Ben's probably heard me say this several times, I'd rather have 10 new followers that fit the bill and they are exactly my target audience. They're in my target location. Basically, they tick all my boxes of let's say, the persona you want to work with, as opposed to gaining 100 followers that have come from somewhere. So it's gaining followers, which is important, but the emphasis should be on quality.
Absolutely. Gaining the right ones is so important, isn't it? If anyone is interested, I've one of the earlier, I'm trying to remember the number of it now, but one of the earlier webinars we did was on that very thing, really understanding the audience, because I think, it's great to understand how Facebook works. And so thanks very much for going through it, Jack. But actually, you still need to know who you're talking to, don't you? Claire added here, and you probably can't answer this easily, but she also added on the about boosted campaigns. If you were to, and by that she's meaning boosted post, really, isn't it? So it's like putting a post out and then paying Facebook to reach more people.
Yes.
The question is, like, what would you recommend to spend on it? I mean, it's a difficult question, isn't it?
It is. But if I talk about, let's say, what I would do if I was talking to a client and they've never done any of this before, as we all know, Facebook is a bit like the NHS. It's free at the point of use or point of need. So any spend is obviously additional, but some ways unnecessary. So you should be looking at doing as much as you can organically. But if you're going to start, always try to keep it low. So maybe recommend the spend of possibly, let's say, £20, £25, certainly no more than £50. That duration, I always recommend of something maybe up to 2 weeks. Some people will talk to me and they'll say, well, I'm going to do something for £10 for a day, or £25 for 4 days. You've got to let the campaign have a bit of, you've got to let it breathe and work. And as much as we don't necessarily want to pay Facebook for an advert, they are really worthwhile, and the algorithm is very, very intelligent. So the 2 weeks for me is a good sort of length of time. So no more than £50 for a campaign to begin with for 2 weeks. In terms of frequency, I would never ever do back-to-back campaigns. So I wouldn't end one and run one. And I certainly wouldn't have one that continuously runs. I mean, that's how it first started, and people got into a lot of So I'm not going to give a time frame. It's always about, we talk about quality and value and having a purpose behind everything. In terms of frequency, you should only advertise when there is a clear objective. So product launch, you've got an event happening, or you, and this is sort of, I'm going to contradict myself in a way, you haven't done an advert for 6 months. But if you haven't done anything for a while, it possibly is worth boosting something that's quite interesting and important to you. So it's very much on a case-by-case basis. Even then, we have clients where they'll run similar campaigns, let's say intermittently throughout the year. We mainly do that so that they're frequently doing it to essentially add new people to the page, but also to reassert messages as well. What we don't, and we do that as well to look at some of the performance. We don't immediately look at something you've spent for £50, and let's say go back a step. Let's say you're comparing 2 ads at a £50 spend. We don't look at the best performing one and go, right, we'll rerun it and double the budget. That isn't the case. We will rerun it. We'll possibly keep the audience set the same, change the content, but maybe tweak a couple of things and keep the budget the same. Having said that, there may be times when an increased budget is worthwhile, but really monitor spend on Facebook.
It's definitely an area we need to go into in a whole webinar.
Yes,
so we'll talk about that, Jack. Kathy's got a question here, which I think is relevant, something you mentioned earlier about jobs. She says, we are looking for new volunteers at the Waterworks Museum in Hereford, a lovely place. I haven't been for many years, but I did enjoy it. In fact, I must take the boys back there at some point. Would you advise using the jobs feature or something else?
Yes, Kathy. In short, I would encourage you to put any sort of volunteering opportunities onto the job section within a page. You treat it as wherever else you're putting the volunteering opportunity. It could be on your website, so a description and some contact details. This is to delve into the jobs a little bit more. Specifically, when you go and put a location in there, you can get it down to a postcode or a town, a city or a region. And that's just predominantly around, let's say, the geography that you possibly want these people to come from. And what it does is it actually puts that opportunity in front of people that meet that criteria. So I would. I'd probably just, if you're after multiple volunteers, I'd only put one opportunity up there. But I'd test it. Speak personal experience working with some clients. They found it, in actual fact, far more efficient than using things like Indeed jobs. They've actually stopped one client stop using Indeed just because of the nature of the work, really. I'd experiment with it, and I would use the job feature.
I've got a few questions, Jack. And before I dive into that, I apologize if anyone can hear noises going past here. It's a very hot day, as I'm sure you all can imagine. Got the windows open, and we've got tractors up and down outside, very big tractors and combines and stuff like that. So hopefully that's not getting in the way. Right, a couple of questions. Groups, Facebook groups. Now, a lot of people swear by Facebook groups in terms of building an audience, building community. I know it's not quite what we're talking about, but in terms of getting people on your side and growing people who are interested in your business or your area, your industry, they seem to be really good for doing that, or have been in the past. Have you got any thoughts on that?
I would definitely agree. If you can create a group within your page where you attract, yes, a target audience. But it's really important to bring people together. So your current customers, there could be people you work with and collaborate with, people who have just got an influence on your particular area of work. It could just be that you are bringing together people in the local area, but it happens to be under the guise of your business. Let's say you're into art, for example. You might bring people from the local area that are interested in art and invite them to come to that group. It's a great way to encourage people to communicate with each other. You become sort of attached to that through your brand and what you're doing, and as long as you contribute to it, it's a great way of building that relationship, but in a pretty informal way. We're seeing community groups being used out there in terms of how people personal profiles. So I see a lot around again local areas, certainly around hobbies, where people are sharing examples of things, and you can't at the moment as a business page, and this is changing. You can't necessarily contribute directly into a group because it's using advertising. They did test it for a period of time where the administrator of a group could allow. So you're there as let's say it's the marketing club, for example. We will all of the people on this call, and let's say watch it. We're all in there and we're sharing examples of work and possibly an invite to this event. Rather, Inventive could also come in as a company and advertise, so to speak. They're trying to police that a little bit, but there's this massive appetite because Facebook are prioritizing it, and businesses are going, well, hang on a minute. I am a genuine business and I want to use this for sensible reasons. So please let me go into this group. So that could evolve. But we've got a couple of clients that have got their own groups, and they've used that from just to share intelligence around their world of work. We haven't done it necessarily to generate inquiries from, but you don't know who they know and the influence there.
Yeah, it comes down to relationships, doesn't it?
Together. So it's certainly worthwhile considering.
So something that I've always struggled with Facebook, and bear in mind, I really don't use Facebook. I do dip on and off. I won't go into why. Too many reasons. But it's very useful for some people. One of the difficulties people have is gaining followers and getting their post read. Because am I right in saying that if you put a post out, it's not necessarily going to be seen by people. So it needs to be worthy in some way. So maybe you need to have people commenting on it. Certainly if you pay for it to be boosted, it's going to be shown. But are there any other things you can do to encourage that post to be shown not only to your followers properly, but also to the wider world, so you start gaining reach?
Good question.
It's a tricky one, isn't it?
Yeah, in terms of the gaining reach, it is very much very sort of ground level. It's got to be shareable. It's got to provoke someone to comment, even if it's just, this looks great. Okay, that doesn't add too much value to you. But what it does do, it does extend that reach and that snowball effect. And yes, they get paid for, you expect that. Facebook did try to introduce hashtags like some of the other platforms, but that didn't really go anywhere. And hashtags are great for certainly across the other key platforms, Instagram being the main one, where it all started being Twitter. And also I'm finding it's really useful on LinkedIn as well. It's a great way of sort of discovering and then latching on to sort of conversation threads, which really sort of pushes you into new audiences. Facebook doesn't tend to have that. It is very much around posting really good quality content. The adverts can complement it because it injects, let's say, some fresh blood into a page that then they're more likely to share. And also, which it shouldn't be the case, because I describe it as a bit like a back scratching exercise. The fact that you have scratched Facebook's back by giving them some money and they've done something for you in return, but because that is where they're trying to force the advertising avenue, is you possibly will see your organic reach go up, which could well be outside of your existing audience. So sort of that extra added value. But that's not as sort of, let's say, as obvious. So it comes down to posting really good quality content. And as I said, getting people to share it for you, even sort of to share on people's pages.
I think that's the key, isn't it? Yeah, getting advocates and ambassadors to do the work for you.
To try and and that's where we talk about ads as well, is that when you post something, as you said, Ben, even going back to the scheduling point, that you know that there is a time and a date when people are most active, all that actually does is just give you a better chance of being seen by a larger amount of your existing audience. Nothing is ever guaranteed. But what's in your control, high quality content, make it shareable and engage with people. So comment and have that conversation and try to sort of encourage that sort of snowball effect as much as you can.
Maybe just a quick question I've got. You mentioned reviews. Do they help you get more visibility? So if you were to get lots of positive thumbs up reviews, does that help in any other way apart from people just looking at your page?
So I think, Facebook would, let's say they go back to your previous question as well about getting new people and how do you do it and what's better chance. That is possibly, again, we don't know because Facebook don't tell us everything, but there's a good chance that the more reviews that you've got, and they're coming from the right people, because Facebook obviously hold all the data, they'll be able to look at how credible these individuals are. There's a better chance of your profile appearing above a similar profile that has got less or poorer quality. Recommendations are better, but they don't. But they don't last as long. So reviews are really important because someone can hit the tab. You can go and find recommendations, but reviews are better. They have more value in the page. But a recommendation, it could be that I actually go on to Facebook and I go and hit the recommend button, and in there I can put in rather Inventive or absolutely fantastic. If you need anything, if you need a new website, you have to go to these people. There's a better chance.
Well, thanks, Jack. Yeah, I mean, just go and do that. It's not a problem.
There's a better chance of, let's say, the ripples of the water being stronger, which mean they go further.
It's very similar with Google. I mean, there are certain elements on their Google My Business page where reviews will actually help you. But they don't say that, but you can see that happening. And just a final question, I think. I don't think you mentioned it, but Facebook Business Manager, when it was first launched, however many years ago, I thought this was a great idea, actually, to be able to have one place where you can go to add multiple clients in, because we don't really manage clients, but there's certain things I need access to. So we have access to their pages. And Facebook Business Manager seemed like a great idea. Actually, it has been more annoying for me, and I've got actually quite stuck as to what is what in Facebook Business Manager. Could you just give us a couple of minutes on what it is and if it's useful?
In my personal opinion, it's not very useful. Facebook Business Manager is this separate tool primarily for your business page that essentially tries to tell you that you can do more. There's access to more tools. So you might be able to put in different sort of search criteria, especially when you put in adverts together. It helps you to sort of, by you putting data in or insights around what you want that post to do, so a call to action. It's supposed to be, if you give it more, it's supposed to be a little bit, help your page and posts penetrate a little bit deeper, a lot quicker, and become efficient. But in actual fact, because of all that, there are layers and layers and layers of information that you get lost very quickly. These tools are very good if you've got the time and the inclination and patience to really invest in them to get something out of it. Facebook did spend a period of time. Like anything, they test things and move things about in terms of buttons and everything else. But in terms of the Business Manager, they did at one time actually force you that when you went via your personal page to go into your page, I think it was either immediately there or the second click through when you actually said you wanted to publish a post, they would then automatically take you out and create another tab and force you down that route, which then everybody was panicking, either thinking, I've never been here, what do I do? Or they have been there thinking, I don't know what's here, how do I get back? They stopped that because I think everybody gave them honest feedback. On the surface of it, especially if we're just talking about Facebook Essentials and getting things started, don't get lost with Facebook Business Manager.
Yeah.
You can do all of the key things for quite a period of time. So yes, from day one, but maybe for months and possibly years to come, if you're just using it in a very simple fashion and you're getting what you want from it, just stick within the main Facebook business page. You can do all your scheduling, posting, engagement, etc., private messaging, creating simple ads within there that keeps it really simple and straightforward. So my personal advice would be to steer clear, because you can get lost very quickly.
Yeah, I agree. I'll definitely. I definitely think that's true. Even I got lost. It's something I'm, quite reasonably comfortable with. Jack, thank you very much. Hopefully, we covered quite a bit of ground there. Feel free to, please, everyone, feel free to go back over the video, look at the slides, and feel free to contact Jack. Jack, what's the best place to get hold of you if someone needs any help, really, with social media, training, or otherwise?
Best place is to firstly email me. So my email address is jack@cawtry.co.uk. You can find me on LinkedIn, which is Jack McCawtry. Or also visit our website, which is cawtry.co.uk, and you can find out all the different bits and bobs that we do, and contact us if you have any questions or you want any help with anything.
Cool, thank you. So hopefully people heard that with that massive combine coming down the road. Just to wrap up, if there's anything you that sprung to mind that you think, yeah, I'll do that, I've got to get on and do that, write it down now. It helps you commit to doing that over the next 30 days. Feel free to share if you want. Otherwise, just keep it to yourself, write it on a bit of paper, make sure it gets done. It's always important you take at least one action forward. Tell your friends if you've enjoyed this, let other people know. Just go through it again. We have one of these added every single month. So once they're added to the archive. So we're building up these video archive of various different training videos. And do check out the audio podcast. I know there's a number of people who I've spoken to who don't have time, a bit like me, to actually watch the videos. If I were to be a member of this club, I wouldn't have time to watch the videos. So I would definitely be listening to the podcast. Do check that out if you're struggling getting hold of it and how you find it. Just let me know. Just contact me, support@ratherinventive.com. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Jack. Well, hopefully, I think we're going to have you back again on the 24th to talk about Instagram at normal time. So that'll be quite interesting. Again, sort of Instagram basics, essentials. We're going to cover the groundwork, and then maybe at some point we'll look at the sort of future, more advanced topics and dive into other areas. Thank you to everyone who came along. It's a pleasure. Kathy, really helpful. Thank you very much. I will definitely come over when I'm in Hereford next. Everyone, thanks very much. And I'll see you again next time. Goodbye.